Happy Monday. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is March 30th. If you can believe it, we are one day shy of the end of Q1. And for all my folks out there in sales, best of luck finishing up the quarter. It's one thing when you're finishing up any month, end of quarters, end of years are always that much more stressful. So, good luck over the next day or so, and I hope that you hit some of your numbers. Like I said, this is the Daily AI Show, and I'm here with Andy Halliday. I'm Brian Masseri. I think we're your two co-hosts for today. I know Beth is out, and I'm not sure about Karl. That may be the only wild card here, but that's okay. We got plenty to talk about, as always. When we come into Mondays, that always seems to be quite a bit of information that trickles in over the weekend. And so we want to get you caught up on that first. And then I think I have another Perplexity computer demo to show that I did over the weekend, Andy, that was just for fun, for something my wife and I were having discussions about. And actually, I was really, really impressed. It's one of those, I'll preface it by saying it's one of those things where you go, I don't even know if I can compute. My wife and I tried to think about what would the human process have been and how long would it have taken us to manually do it? And we couldn't even really come up with a viable answer. That's how much time this particular process had saved. And so I thought, oh, wow. And so it was actually great because I had an opportunity to demonstrate what these tools are doing to my wife and just to kind of keep her up to date with it, whatever. But also it was something that was very, almost tactile, not tactile, right? It's on the computer screen, but very, very right there. And, you could play with the buttons and push around. And, I explained to her how I built it and stuff like that. So I think I'm going to demonstrate that just because it's fun. And I think it's the power of some of these tools. I've also, before we get into the news, Andy, I've been putting together a training video internally for scale that I decided to do. And I started with Claude Code, and then that moved into Codex. And then it went into AI Studio and then Perplexity Computer with a bunch of demos I built out all the time. So now these poor souls at Scaled are about to get about a 30-minute video from me. But I'm going to show them. I created like zip files that are quick starts for Codex and Claude Cowork. So I said code, but co-work for my coworkers. No pun intended. Where you just give it the zip file and it says, hey, I'm Claude Code and here's what we need to do. So it's a little bit kinder, gentler. Not that they're bad, and they are, but I think there's a little bit to be desired in terms of when you just first start. Like, what am I supposed to do here? And so what I did was I created scaled versions of like quick start guides that they just give it a zip file. And it's like, here's what you should do first. And then it's got a couple basic skills like I have a really nice one actually that's running in Claude Code that works beautifully, but it's reading my emails and bringing me back action items, but it keeps an updated ledger and knows when I check things off. Simple, but actually I ran it this morning and checked it. And I was like, I found 2 emails that I'll be honest, had gotten a little buried. And it's like, this is a high priority. You have not responded back to so-and-so on this request for a client. I was like, yeah, that's true. So
that's a natural use case for people who want to start to do something with the agentic features of Claude Code, or specifically Cowork and the new scheduled tasks things. And it is to take a look at, just optimizing the drudgery of having to review and keep track of everything in your email inbox. I've actually created such a thing. I was just mentioning it before the show, that does a digest for me of all of the newsletters that I receive in my inbox. And that's been very, very handy. It definitely took a load off of me, but I haven't really decided to do that for my general inbox and all the information that's in there, in part because Google, I use Gmail. So Google has a thing called CC, and I'm in the sort of the beta group for CC, which is a digest that creates exactly that out of, it basically gives you a list of the things you need to attend to that you may not have attended to. And so I haven't built it for myself because Google's doing it for me.
Yeah. And there's just going to be more of that, right? Where, we build off these tools and they're helpful in Claude Code. And then you're right. It'll just be this thing that's easily done. By the way, I have a lot of, including my CEO, who uses that tool Superhuman. I have access to it. It's scaled. It's nothing scaled is done. It's been my own, like, I don't know, not resistance, but unwillingness to like put the time in to just get it right. But I hear amazing things about tools that already exist. So I know I'm reinventing the wheel here. It's good to see what it can do. Working in Codex has been a bit more of a learning curve. It couldn't actually, despite building the skill, couldn't actually do the Gmail, the same inbox functionality. Just crazy because it has a plugin for Gmail that I connected and it still was running into error. And it ultimately said, we think this is a bug. That's what Codex came back to. So anyway, anything you have to share, Andy, but I'll share the Perplexity computer thing a little bit later.
I'll talk a little bit about some deep work that I've been doing on a tax optimization and liquidity calculator, basically using ChatGPT 5.4.
Nice.
And that, is it 5.4 or 5.3? Yeah. I can't remember which one. Yeah. Anyway, the latest model, and refining some work that I originally built with ChatGPT. And then I've had Claude, audit. And so I'll describe what that is and why it's so complicated, without necessarily revealing the true complications of my personal tax situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, revealing that live on the show.
Well, I'll give you the perspective of somebody who's now retired and basically having to live off the resources that I've got.
Yeah.
And the tax implications of that, which you don't think about when you're actually in the earning phases of your life. So anyway, I'll tell you how AI is helping me navigate that.
Okay, before we get into the news, I am just going to bring this up from Greg in the comments that says, yes, all apps will be inside your AI. But Greg, I feel like you're slipping on a Monday morning. I would have expected you to say, no. A typical Greg response would be, no, there are no apps or something like that, right? So anyway, Greg, you're slipping on a Monday morning. I was expected a little bit more out of that one. So you can give us your comments. Thanks to everybody in the comments, by the way. If you want to ever join us live on the show, if you haven't been following us for a little, this is like episode 691. We do this Monday through Friday live. We haven't missed a Monday through Friday since we started roughly 3 years ago. But you could always join us live by coming over to YouTube and being part of the community over here. So we got all sorts of people leaving comments saying good morning.
I'm going to jump into this news item, which is there's a new cinema experience of AI's alignment issues. It's the movie called The AI Doc, and Jeff says that he went and saw it over the weekend. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know that I can carve away enough time to go sit in the theater to watch that. But it's combined with a new 38-page magnum opus from Dario Amodei of Anthropic. He's written a deep dive article on the alignment issues. And when we say alignment, we mean, what are the risks to the human population of the unregulated development of AI? And this is really the theme of the AI Doc. It's interviews with people who have spent a lifetime leading up to this moment in time, to be in a position to comment on that. So I'm very curious to see what the takeaways are from people who have seen that, and then also to read this 38-page thing that's just released by Dario Amodei on the very same subject.
Yeah, and a good pivot from that story is to keep talking about Anthropic, because we had seen last week that there had been an accidental human error, it sounds like, leak of what was being called a Mythos. I think it's
Mythos.
Yeah, Mythos, which is also now called Capybara. Right. So everybody keep we're gonna do a round robin here of names.
Is it Chupacabra or Capybara?
No, it's Capybara, Capybara, however you want to say it. The large rodent looking thing. I don't know where these names come from, but I feel like Apple started this years ago with their naming conventions. But regardless, it's one and the same. So if you hear Mythos or you hear Capybara, they're the same model. Just know that going into it, for whatever reason, it was named one or the other. This was basically, they confirmed that this model exists, because we weren't really sure. You get a thing and somebody screen grabbed it and it's a hearsay type thing, but no, it's a real thing. They're saying it's a new class of models above their Opus level models. It's powerful. it could be potentially dangerous, and they're being very methodical and slow about its release and its testing with some groups. So also in that article that was leaked, I guess that was put in like this open publicly view cache that they had, saying that it's also very expensive. So this does not sound like the type of model that everybody's just going to have access to in a month or two, so 3 times, whatever it is, we're all going to be using it. It sounds like it's a very powerful model, but it's
maybe not that model, but distillations of it.
Maybe.
It has advanced capabilities. It's going seriously a cut above where the state of the art has been. At least that's the implication from this draft blog post that got leaked. And I think Opus, then Mythos, that's what you're going to see as the top tier model. Mm-hmm. And Sonnet will benefit from that. Like Sonnet 5 will probably be a distillation of Mythos rather than a distillation of Opus.
Yeah, that makes sense. And look, you're right. Like we'll see this past NFX, which also goes into the news. You said you talked about, I believe it was you, Andy, last week. Well, you did, because you talked about what was the Gemini Terabot, what's it called?
You're thinking about Terafab?
Terafab.
That's an Elon Musk thing.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, no. Then I'm not. Jesus, I got so much news. No, the new Google super fast like inference. They were putting a patent on it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's.
I bet you're on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah. No, let me just pull that back up here.
Yeah. While you're talking,
name right. Yeah, I've got names spinning around in my head here.
All I can think of is Capivaras now. So we're all.
What the heck is it called? TurboQuant.
TurboQuant. Well, at least I started.
TurboQuant.
TurboQuant. Okay, I was just
to refresh everybody's memory.
Yes, please. TurboQuant more about
is an algorithm developed by Google Research that radically accelerates inference by basically compressing the KV cache in the inference process, which is a memory system. And that the announcement of that was clear to major investors in the world of AI that, we're not really going to need the same level of compute for inference that we thought we did, because there are going to be massive accelerations available through algorithmic improvements. And so it really made a splash, including causing memory stocks to drop like 5 to 7%.
I know.
And so that's a real effect. Anyway, it's a major new advance, and it reduces the inference cost basically by 8x, I think, if I recall correctly. With consequent, and the cost is basically slave to the speed with which that inference occurs. And so you're basically getting faster results at lower cost without any change to the hardware.
And so the reason, thank you for doing that and being able to recount all that. By the way, there's a great write-up about that, which is why it makes me laugh, because the newsletter literally came out yesterday. There's a great write-up about that in the newsletter that Andy and I worked on over the weekend. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is not for any particular story. It's that I really saw like 2 or 3 over the last couple of days. I just don't have them up on my screen, where it was just more stories, not at that level, but they were like software enhancements. It would be like the blog title would be something like "New Advancements Cuts Inference Rate by 1.8%," right? Or whatever it was, right? Or 1.8 times more effective work, inference, whatever. And I just see this coming up more and more. Maybe it's because you had just talked about that Google story, so it's in the the back of my mind. But then if you couple those stories of basically not needing a new NVIDIA chip necessarily, the latest and greatest, and what is it, N100 or T100 or whatever, to get more out of it, because that's kind of what you were saying with Google. And we're seeing these other improvements in inference in other areas that are more software related. And then you couple that with stories like we talked about it last week, but Cursor has Composer 2. And one of the things that came out with that, but it was sort of brief, was that it was basically self-improving. Well, they had a post on X over March 26th. Well, I guess it was a few days ago. I happened to catch it, but it's like we're sharing additional research on how we train new checkpoints with real-time reinforcement learning. We can ship improved versions of the model every 5 hours. And I just think this is like, this is Cursor 2, right? But this seems to be the theme now, right, Andy?
Yeah, let me talk about Cursor 2 as a domain-specific model. It's a vertical AI application that has gotten better than the frontier models at specifically coding by being trained on this narrower range of needs that the Cursor users have. And I read a great article over the weekend that's about this whole idea of the rise of vertical AI, which is bespoke vertical applications of AI are going to be superior to the frontier models, and they're going to be less expensive, smaller, and much more effective. And so there's going to be this sort of subdivision across domains of AI. And then the other point that you were making has to do with self-improvement by the models, and whether, Cursor Composer and or others can actually teach themselves in the practice of their domain-specific exercise. And there's a new thing out just recently, and I just read it today in MarkTech Post, called A-Evolve for Agent Evolve. Okay. And this is the idea that you have a coding agent, or you have a personal agent, or you have any one of the OpenClaw variant agents. Right. And this framework called A-Evolve is going to replace the manual tuning of those, where you have to say things like I just said to Claude. I said, look, next time you do this, I don't ever want you to do that. Okay. You need to add that to the instructions. And so it goes off and dutifully adds that to the instructions. That's manual reinforcement learning. Okay. Right. I'm training the model to do that. Well, this Evolve framework replaces that manual process by automating state mutation and self-correction within a group of agents. So the agents actually maintain their own library of self-improving notes, if you will. And so I need to read that article and also commit it to the expanding library I have in Notebook LM on all of these subjects that one day will emerge as something really quite interesting, kind of not just a library, but a professor of all of these issues, and will be able to, speak to me, or, develop new ways for me to learn about all those things. So all these trends are converging, especially around agentic improvement, so that we're getting closer and closer to AGI in collective processes, not just a single model being smarter than the rest. So AGI is going to emerge as something like this, where self-improving collaborative agent networks are able to achieve super intelligence in a way that we don't expect that pre-training and then post-training of a single model can. Okay, now to that point, since we're approaching AGI in some ways, and we talked last week about that Jensen Huang at GTC said in an interview, actually, but in the time frame of GTC, their major conference, he said that AGI we've already achieved in certain vertical applications, but it's not broad, so that any human can learn anything. Well, this AI can't learn everything, but it's going to be able to be smarter than humans and capable of generalizations inside a specific domain. This gets back to this idea of vertical AIs being really, really important to this thing. Well, ArcAGI is the benchmark that's used to evaluate whether a model, a specific model, is at the top of the leaderboards, in effect, for this artificial general intelligence. Well, they just launched a new version of that, ArcAGI 3. Okay, and every frontier model scores under 1% on it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes. Okay, so that's good. That means that it's a tougher test. And by the way, ArcAGI3, almost any expert human can get, much, much higher scores than 1% on it. So it's a more valid test of whether the models are actually achieving something akin to human intelligence. And so maybe there's lots of information in here, like Gemini 3.1 Pro leads with 0.37%, so less than one. GPT 5.4 at 2.26%, Claude Opus 4.6 at 0.25, and Grok 4.2 at 0%. Grok could not answer anything on the ArcAGI3 test. Okay, so there's a $2 million test, a prize put out by Kaggle, and the competition's live. So now, basically you've got models that can't succeed at that. So there's a need to orchestrate models, multiple models and or multiple agents running on the same kind of core pre-trained frontier model intelligence to try to beat this test. And I think it's going to be done collectively. There will be news soon about ArcAGI3 superior performance to what the frontier models can do by some orchestrated framework or a harness, as they call it, of multiple agents applying themselves to that test.
Which, by the one quick note on that, I did read that there was some pushback about the scoring criteria of ARC3, because it's like, if I remember right, the issue was if it fails one part, it fails all of it, which is why those percentages are very, very low, less than 1%. And so there was some pushback against that.
Interesting. I didn't see anything about the scoring system and what impact that had on the low performance.
Right.
But I think that, the smart models are going to be able to work around those limitations that are imposed by the new ArcAGI3. By the way, one of the things to put it in perspective is that ArcAGI2 last year, just in the current year, most models started out at 3% or below and managed within that year to get above 50% on ArcAGI2, which is why the need for ArcAGI3.
And so what I was going to say, the other point to that was, Jess Wong talked about it. We talked about it. Everybody's talking about it, AGI, but that's really what we're starting to see evolve. AGI will be, you could call it the harness. I will call it sort of that classic MCP to A, sort of setup, where you do have very, very good either agents, or maybe it's an agent plus lots of sub agents that are very, very good, like Composer 2 at specific tasks. But sure, and Greg is kind of making the point in the comments that, like, do we really want these silos? Well, I would say there's nothing wrong with that agents and sub agents having that specific skills. Now imagine there are 50 other agents that have 50 other abilities in other areas. Maybe it's all in the same vertical. Maybe we're breaking out of the vertical. That's when I really start to think you look at probably industry, and maybe earlier than that, sub industry AGI, where the consensus, the general consensus, because there is no, like, nobody gets a prize per se to it, but the general consensus of experts in that, maybe even sub industry, just to keep it a little bit more niche, are going to say, yeah, you know what, you can pretty much throw anything at it, at AI, at this mesh network of agents and super sub agents and everything else. And there's some models used over here and open source models used over here and whatever. But the sum total of this is when you speak to the orchestrator, not only is it able to answer at an AGI level, that consensus, it's self-improving, right? Like we just talked about. So it's making itself better as it's getting the global inputs from that sub industry. I think that's what, that's what I think is going to end up happening, because that's where everything seems to be moving towards. So I think initially the idea was, is there going to be one model to rule them all? That was sort of old 2 years ago, thinking about AGI. Oh, we were watching singular models get better and better and better. And so it was easy to look at that graph and go, well, at some point, OpenAI's ChatGPT 14.2 is probably some version of AGI. If we're at 5 right now, it's easy to watch that. And what we've really seen, I mean, and especially at the end of 2025 and 2026, is these agentic workflows, these swarms of agents, or whatever you want to call it. Obviously, the open Claude and Claude Code. So it's really interesting to see the pattern shift from what we initially said, oh, that's our understanding of what AGI is, to now it's no. It's a much more complex network that is probably vertically focused at first. But then again, if I have 1,000 sub industries who have all agreed that they have AGI, then what does the larger, you go up one step from that and you go, well, now I have AGI at whatever, the next tier up, because I have 1,000 ones that all have consensus that they're AGI. So it just keeps building like a structure that way until there is actually a universal consensus of AGI, which may be just supplanted by superintelligence, ASI, right? So I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm guessing like the rest of us, but that seems to be where this is going. 2026, definitely, as we were saying at the top of the show, as we end the first quarter of 2026, that seems to be the path. Do you see it differently, Andy, or is that kind of where you see AGI now too?
I think that's right. Directionally, that's what we observe, and that's where I think it makes sense that it's going to go. So I wanted to just share that article. It was actually an article on X, and it's about the customer support platform called Fin, Fin, which competes with other customer support platforms, but beats them on the benchmarks. And most of the other platforms use one of the frontier models as their reasoning engine in order to generate the dialogues that happen with the customers. And the main objective of these things, the objective function of them, is to have closing of customer support issues. What's the rate of resolution that's done by the AI without human assistance? And the Fin model that they've trained on their very large customer base of actual users of customer support systems, theirs, like that information is this proprietary data set that not every frontier model has access to, that then confers upon the Fin platform an advantage that translates into superior performance. And so the Fin platform, and the reason for the CEO's post on X, was to basically announce that his model now, their internal model that they've been training, beats any other model out there, including other proprietary sort of customer service focused AI development agents, but also all of the AI applications that you might build using one of the frontier models as the reasoning engine behind a platform that you build with vibe coding, presumably.
Yeah.
But he took that farther to say, this is where the industry is going. We're going to see more and more sort of isolated, domain-specific vertical AIs, and they'll be expert. And then what you're alluding to is, how do those things gang up together to make themselves available as expert systems with skills that have been trained in that specific problem set? How do those get ganged together in a way that we actually have access to a general intelligence that covers all those bases that are out there at the sort of the Pareto optimal position for their particular industry?
Yeah. And at that point, are we really even calling it AI, right? I mean, is that, even now, I think with clients, sometimes I don't emphasize the AI because I'm like, it's almost a barrier in some cases. So no, we're just solving problems, and AI is part of that solution. But let's not get hung up on the AI necessarily aspect of it. It's one part of a larger solution. And as this grows, it gets more complex. Yeah, you're going to have people who are masters at working and combining and figuring out what, the same way we do with MCP and plugins today, just replace that with entire AGI systems, let's call it.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to have to orchestrate that and make sure that they play nice together in the sandbox and all the things. And, you know, whether AI is part of that solution or not, I'm sure it will be, but this is definitely where I see this going, is somebody's going to have to orchestrate that. You know, yeah, at your bottom level, you, me, if we're all working at the same company, Greg and Gareth and everybody else in the comments, you know, if we're all working for the same company, yes, okay, we all agree we probably would have theoretically a bunch of agents or sub-agents working for us, and we are sort of managing those with our individual expertise. But then you layer up from that, and you say, okay, well, somebody still has to manage the connections and connectors to all of that without it getting messy. Which AGI at that point has superiority over others? There has to be a hierarchy. There has to be a rule set, because it's possible that they'll have conflicting information. Who decides which one is in fact the truth?
Well, it's going to be more distributed than, I think, one centralized resolution agent, if you will. So I have an agent in this imagined future. I have an agent, but that agent can go out and talk to any other agent which has expertise and skills, and they have a publicly available access to their skill set, and they also might have some private and gated access to that. And I may have to pay for access to certain of those skills for my agent to leverage them. But I think that that's kind of where we're going to end up going. This idea of the agents being the interface to the tool set. And this is something that there was also news over the weekend about something that OpenAI put forward that is, and I think it's OpenAI, correct me if I'm wrong, but that basically challenges MCP by saying the agent is the MCP. The agent will be able to determine how to do the interaction with whatever that feature server is out there. Yeah. That is another AI agent and or another platform with API access. And you don't need MCP because the agent will do the functions, so that every agent is an MCP in its own right. So that's the kind of the high level idea that's been put out there. But they also provided, I think, a framework, a coding framework for that to actually be executed. But then there were a lot of comments in X about, oh no, MCP is dead. Long live MCP. Because MCP, just like APIs haven't gone away, MCP isn't going away. But it is true that agents will be able to replicate much of the functionality that currently is being accelerated by the availability of MCP as an interface to services out there.
I would, what do I know? I would be surprised to see MCP go away anytime soon, only because that is the way that if I built a solution and you're using my solution and your agent's talking to my solution, that is the way that I am able to say, hey, Andy's agent, this is how you work best and work within what I built. And that's sort of the point of it. Now, you're probably right. Once agents get intelligent enough that they don't really need the instructions manual anymore, they're just like, I can figure it out always without fail, then I guess so. There's no reason.
There's something nice and structured about MCP that makes it accessible. But is it any surprise that OpenAI is putting forward a proposition that, hey, Anthropic's MCP, not such a big deal. We don't have it, which gets us to a weave, which is the major Wall Street Journal article that came out about the feud between Dario Amodei and Sam Altman. Okay. So there was apparently, that feud has been exposed a little bit more through this Wall Street Journal investigative reporting. And it starts out with this idea that Greg Brockman, the guy who gave $25 million to the MAGA super PAC, he proposed to sell AGI access to nuclear power nations. And this, rattled Dario Amodei. That led to a 2020. Now, remember, we didn't even start thinking about AI in a sort of mass population way until 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 3 years prior. There was a shouting match between Altman and Dario that led to him leaving OpenAI and starting Anthropic. And around that time, he referred to OpenAI as having abandoned its, for humanity kind of, nonprofit purpose, and instead was becoming a tobacco company.
Yeah, I saw that quote.
And so then you have this problem of the Department of Defense, aka Department of War, in the hands of Pete Hegseth, our masterful warrior.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've got this going on where they labeled Anthropic a national security risk, and Sam Altman said, "Oh, we agree with Anthropic. There must be safeguards. And no, we did a deal last night that meets all those requirements." Bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just part of the fray that's going on between those two. And then meanwhile, just catch everybody up, Anthropic, in the wake of that, had triple the registrations that they had before. They tripled in response to that. And part of the reason that we're all complaining about the throttling that Anthropic is doing on your time limits on credits is that they've just been flooded with people who are moving over to Claude, both out of curiosity and then also as part of the Quit GPT movement, that people are signing up for Claude. And so they're having to throttle that in a short-term period in order to just preserve ongoing viability of their compute platforms against this onslaught of new registrations using Claude.
Yeah.
So that's all happening. And then importantly, Anthropic, which had been designated a national security risk and so on, they just got an injunction blocking the Trump administration in the last couple of days. It must have happened on Friday, I think.
We talked about it last week, the injunction from the initial report back from the judge. I don't remember the judge's name.
I don't know the judge's name either, but I do have this quote from the judge, which is the designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk, which suggests a national security risk, is classic illegal First Amendment retaliation.
Yeah.
That's the judge's opinion on that, and I agree with it.
And that this has a long way to go, right? This is nowhere from over, but that was sort of like the first note that Anthropic might be successful in that. Well, there's two major parts to that. This was referring to one of them. Okay, before I want to do a quick lightning round of news, but then I want to get into so we can get a test and then we'll wrap things up. But quick lightning round. Number one, we're seeing this trend. We talked about two trends earlier in the show. Here's another trend that we're seeing: this set it and forget it, or dispatch, or any of these sort of like trends where you can set something to go up and you can walk away. Well, on a smaller scale, Notebook LM, who you talked about earlier, but I didn't want to jump in with a weave there. But Notebook LM just has like now a multitasking right from your phone or from your desktop or interchangeably. You can set up, like in this particular case, they have a little thing about like, why is my dog constantly biting shoes or something like that, right? And they're able to just talk that in, and then Notebook LM's like, yep, got it, and then just comes back with that notification. We see this in Perplexity. Perplexity Computer will come back and be like, hey, do you just want me to like buzz you when I'm done with this? So I think this is also a growing trend, this sort of set it and forget it. There's the higher order ones where you have to keep the computer on and things like that. These are smaller tasks. We're not talking about multi-day or anything at this point, but that is certainly where this is going. And when you add that trend to the other two trends we talked about, you can really start to, lay out a good structure of where AI is going in 2026. So that was one of them. Another one really quick that I thought was really cool: Meshi and MakerWorld team up to put AI 3D model generation in Bamboo Lab users' hands. Okay, that all might as well be gibberish to me. I understand what they're saying, but really the gist of all of that is, if you do 3D printing, there was still a bit of a couple extra steps if you were going from I guess through the rendering process to get the files or whatever. Anyway, this article from a couple days ago, I think from Friday, talks about how there was people in the article saying like, this is as easy as it's ever been to go from concept to a printed final design is easier than it's ever been. And now it's only like literally 4 steps. So that's really, really cool. I mean, obviously there's people who've been doing 3D printing for quite a while. I have not personally gotten into it. I know there are whole, industries, cottage industries that will, print for you. But I see this obviously being really, really valuable. Even if somebody wanted to do something like my idea was like something my daughter could do. She could use like Google Maps to look at the front of somebody's house, create a rough 3D rendering between the upper view or whatever of like that house, right? And then make it like a jar and then sell it, back to people who want to put memories or mementos, or make it a cookie jar for that matter. But it's literally a little mini 3D printed model of your house with a removable roof to it, right? Like these are Etsy type things, but this is what this is when you simplify this process, it's really allowing people to like, we know you could stand up a website in seconds, especially with Codex and some of their plugins and things that they have. You can connect Stripe and Vector and not Vector, the one you can publish on. Anyway,
Vercel?
You can do this really, really
Are you talking about Vercel?
Vercel, thank you.
Yeah.
Vercel. So anyway, I think it's very cool. I'm not in this space, but for anybody that is in this space, go check out this article. This is from 3D printing industry. If you're looking for the buzzwords to look this up, if you're like, what is Brian talking about? Look for Meshy and Maker World, and I'm sure you'll find a Google article on that. And then I think I had one more, Andy. Did I have 3? I thought I had 3. Oh, last one. Just cool. Not something I would use either, but MLB, so the Major League Baseball, they just came out. They partnered with Gemini and Google Cloud AI, and they have something now called Scout, MLB Scout, which I tried to find a YouTube video of just to show, and literally could not find one video on it. So it's fairly new. Hopefully someone will make a video and showing it. But I guess the impression is it's going through like, terabytes, petabytes of data, and essentially live on the while you're watching the game, you get all sorts of like really crazy, interesting stuff. Here's one example from our beta testing. Last Friday, Jordan Walker hit 9th hardest single in American Family Field history, dating to 2014 at 114.3 miles per hour. Now, if you're the type of person that just loves to watch sports, but also loves the data, we're starting to see this more and more. Amazon has had versions of this where you can watch feeds that just, do all the data and stuff. If that's what you're into, I think this is really cool. I guess you would have to go through the app or MLB in order to use Scout. I'm looking at a screen grab of it. That's about as much as I could tell you, because like I said, I could not find literally one video of it being used, and wasn't something I could do. Yeah, Greg is saying baseball fans will eat this up. Yeah, I mean, if you're that person, right? If you just like, if the fun of it is the stats and all that, this certainly seems like a tool. It also doesn't specifically say that it costs money. Now, I don't know. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's very, very cool that they have that, and it's cool to see stuff like that come out. I think that's really sort of the future of TV, is you'll almost always be able to, the same way you toggle on captions, you'll be able to toggle on overlays, and probably multiple custom overlays that match right up with like the sports that you're watching or whatever. They give you whatever, all the stats that you could possibly want, probably highly customized at some point. I think that'll just be a normal feature of most smart TVs, in the future. So yeah, very cool. Anyway, that was my fast fire round there. But you got to need to add to that, Andy, before we go to a quick.
I have one more that I wanted to mention. Last week was Jensen Huang's keynote and the GTC conference, and one of the things we didn't talk about then is their autonomous vehicle platform and what's being done with that platform. So I want to just give you some data on that. So NVIDIA Drive Hyperion is the autonomous vehicle platform that was just announced at GTC 2026 in San Jose. It's a production-ready architecture that has high-performance compute, the Jetson Thor compute module, like that can be used for both robotics and for autonomous vehicles. And that's the NVIDIA AGX Thor chip. And then it couples that with sensors and networking and safety systems in an integrated package. And that will power level 4 autonomous vehicle driving. So level 4 is where, hands off, you don't even have to look. You can just ride around. The vehicle is completely autonomous and safe. Okay, it can handle all the driving tasks without any human intervention at any time. Okay, who's using it? This is very interesting. So previously announced partners using the NVIDIA Hyperion platform are Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and GM. Just put those three together, and that's a big market right there. Well, in addition, now BYD, the largest car manufacturer in the world out there in China, which has done really great advancements in the battery technology and in the suspension systems and just the quality and manufacture quality, and also the cost performance ratio. All of that in the BYD vehicles is world-class, world standards. But in addition to that, Nissan and Isuzu, two Japanese major manufacturers, also are adopting the Hyperion platform for autonomous driving. Waymo built their own. They have got that Waymo thing. That's Google's spin out. But now NVIDIA is taking the lion's share of autonomous vehicle development here, with those players doing that. Let me just finalize that by telling you what's built into this thing. It has dual Thor systems on a chip. So that's the Thor package, but there's two of them in the autonomous system. There's LiDAR, 14 cameras, a full generative simulation loop that goes from the Cosmos platform to AlpaSim to Alpa Dreams. And the first robotaxi that's going to be implemented to do this is a Mercedes S-Class robotaxi from Uber. That's the near-term production target for this platform. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to having my own Mercedes S-Class, which I could never afford. But now I just call up Uber and say, bring it on, and it'll drive me around wherever I want to go.
That's right. Take me where I want to go. By the way, your story about that reminded me, this is from 2024, but there's a story from the Ford CEO,
about BYD, like
Jim Farley. No, well, that story, but in 2024, there was a story that he was driving, I don't know how you say it, like Xiaomi, however you say that car company.
Xiaomi,
Yes, SU7 was his daily driver.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait, hold on. The Ford CEO is not driving Fords. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to give it up. Now, this predates him saying he was humbled, remember, by going over and seeing what BYD was doing and stuff. And also, there's been news on that where Ford has announced their sort of, I think we're still 2 years away from this, probably, from seeing these vehicles. And like all of them, they're going to say it's going to come out at 25,000 and the first model will be 45,000. That seems to happen over and over. But their whole thing is going back to what I saw a company quite a bit. I think it was called Canoe. I think they folded, but it was this universal, basically skateboard, right, underneath the EVs. And anyway, Ford is aggressively pushing that. Really interesting to see him always sort of publicly say, like, Ford's not where it needs to be. I'm humbled by what I saw in China, and this is what we need to do. So anyway, it's sort of a side note, but it's what we think of that. Hey, Karl joined us as well. Hey, Karl. We've been sort of chit-chatting the whole day about news and different stuff, but I'm actually going to do a quick screen share here of something else I did on Perplexity Computer over the weekend. That was just for fun. So I'll explain it to you guys on there. So I'll give you the quick background to this. My wife and I, not this year, in a few years, we have talked extensively. In fact, we're pretty serious about being able to be remote and also being able to travel. It's something we're really passionate about. And my daughter's a few years out from college, so this is getting closer and closer to be a reality. Now, we're not rich, so a lot of what we talk about are places that you can go around the country, like our world, like Cambodia and other places, to perhaps live for 3 months at a time. And we like the idea of moving 4 times a year and staying in Airbnbs long term and just enjoying that, consuming and enjoying that area of the world, but also doing it economically, right? Because we don't have unlimited funds. In fact, anything we have ever talked about has to be less expensive than whatever we currently bring in now. It has to be a cheaper way of life, right? So one of the things we've talked about, more or less for fun than anything else, is the idea of like constant cruising. Lots of people do this, but they also, Royal Caribbean, we had just happened to see a YouTube thing, and it was about their Crown and Anchor Society, right? Their points program, right? And so anyway, all you really need to know about this is that I was curious what that would actually look like from a Tampa, home base. Could you, for a stated budget, which here I have is 60,000. That's not like our income budget, but like that was me replacing mortgage plus food plus entertainment plus, right? Those type of things in our budget. So like consider 5K a month, right? And could you essentially go see the world living on cruise ships through Royal Caribbean, and also get this Diamond Plus, which is the second to highest tier, which then comes with a whole lot of other perks, as you can imagine. And anyway, I say all this to say that, like, here's just Route 1 global. Perplexity Computer, with 2 prompts, figured it all out. Now, some of this is hypothetical because we're not traveling next year. So you're going with dates and times and prices or whatever. But the reason I want to share this is because of the complexity of what it had to do to figure this out. And so basically it built all this. I was not very specific at all about what I wanted the dashboard to look like. So 95% of what you see here is Perplexity Computer's choice in doing so. All the color coding, all the stuff on here. And then it has drop downs essentially that says like, well, look, right. I said it has to be done in 1 year. It has to meet certain criteria. We want to be home for holidays, whatever, right? Just to throw some stuff at it. And basically it went and figured out what you would have to logistically do and the ships that you would be on, the places around the world. So it starts in Tampa. So it's a bit of the Caribbean, then going out of, I think, Puerto Rico here for a bit. Then you take the transatlantic, because that's what I'm doing in, a few weeks time. And those are very, very cost effective to do that, because you can even see here, like you'll average something like $61 a night. The cruise my wife and I are taking are only $75 a night. That's much cheaper than most cruises would be. So now what it does is it takes you across the world and you go into the Mediterranean, and now you're going around the Mediterranean. Here's all the countries that you would be there for. And then it goes into Asia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, and Japan. And then there's another transatlantic that takes you back across the Trans-Pacific. Excuse me, not transatlantic, Trans-Pacific. And so down here, you can see all the unique ports that we would have hypothetically visited in 1 year's time on Royal Caribbean, while meeting that upper tier Crown and Anchor, which, like I say, gives you other, because it's for life. So the idea was, could you take 1 year out of your life, do this, hit the upper tier, and hold that status, because it doesn't expire for the rest of your life, which would give you, for the rest of your life, would you give you like nice advantages on taking future cruises. So could you give 1 year of your life to see the world and do this? This isn't a forever thing. It's like a 1 year time frame. And I think what's really cool is that I was able to sit down with my wife, and I won't bore you guys with going into all the other ones, but you can see there's 2 other routes. It compared all global pricing, some overall booking strategy. It created a budget calendar. So you can see here, it's cost comparing the 3 of them. The third one, staying around America, was the cheapest. So all of them needed to be under 60,000. And the other thing I'll say that it did that was amazing was it factored in what the current gratuity rate is, which is not something I was even thinking about. And Perplexity Computer figured out that those were additional fees that I was going to incur, and they needed to be factored in, to the tune of, if I paid all gratuities for that whole year, that's $6,000 in gratuities. Definitely not nothing, right? Anyway, whether this is something people care about or not, what I think is really cool is that was definitely a set it and walk away. I did it once and I thought, oh, I wasn't as specific as I should have been. I gave it another big prompt and walked away. I think it took 21 minutes the second time. I think it also chewed through all my credits, my free credits for computer, which I don't care about. And then I was able to sit down with my wife, and we just had a fun, futuristic, maybe it'll happen, probably, maybe not, I don't know. But it proved that the concept works just by running through all this. And I think that's super fun. And it literally did not take more than time of investment can't be 15 minutes from me. And to do this manually would have been weeks of logistically trying to sit down? I mean, truthfully, you would have just started with a travel agent and tried to figure it out logistically, how to get around the world and work the ships back to back to back in order to maximize your money and all that. So anyway, I just want to share. I thought that was
one thing that I think you like. It'd be neat if you actually, you're like, okay, let's say for example, you are set to go in a year, like you've made the decision.
Mhm.
If you have the tokens and the credits to do it, you can just kind of have it kind of always on every month, maybe every, like as it gets closer, every 2 weeks to a week to a day, to when you actually want to pay, like, you know, set your first trip wherever that is. Then you have it like constantly review or update itself, right? So kind of real time. Update, like, you know, set your heartbeat at whatever it is, whatever the cadence would be. So then like you're always getting kind of that real time info, but at a more regular occurrence as you get closer to whenever your book dates, like on April,
things are going to change, right? You're going to have to pivot.
Yeah, you have to
There's
pivot.
no way you're going to set a year's set in stone, you know, especially if my daughter was in college at the time, which is when we would probably be doing this. There's all sorts of reasons why you might have to pivot that schedule. So I agree with you. Also, what it points out, and this is just getting, it's not really AI related, but getting into the cruise world thing of it, is that you want the ability to, you know, maximize your deals, right? And your flash deals. And there, you know, Perplexity was telling me that January to March is when you book a lot of cruises. Actually, it just happened to be when we booked our cruise a year and a half out, but that's how we got an insanely low price, was because we were so early, right? So there's all these, like, to your point, Karl, all these logistics. It's not just one thing, it's many things. And frankly, you would tee this up with some travel agent that you work with consistently so that they could see it too. You would want you and the travel agent looking at this and going, okay, this is where it is. Does this need to pivot? This needs to pivot. And, you know, to pull it off. So anyway, it's a very cool use case. And I just wanted to share it to like open people's minds about the types of complex research that you might want to do for your family or whatever, that not just Perplexity, any of them can now help, you know, do for you. Very, very cool. It was it really, really made my wife's and I day yesterday to talk about this and just set aside real world and just go into future, maybe one day world. And that's fun sometimes. That's a fun place to be with your significant other sometimes, you know?
Nicely done.
Yeah. And with that, I actually have to drop it. If you guys want to wrap up, keep going. And I just have to get ready for a meeting, but I'll be back the rest of this week. So see y'all then.
All right.
Sounds good.
Hello, Karl.
What's up?
Well, all's well. I wanted to mention about Perplexity Computer that I wasted all of my 4,000 tokens doing just a play thing where I was having it search for photos of the skis that I used to ski on, right? And so it really ground it down, ground the 4,000 tokens down, and now I'm at negative 45, and I just haven't been willing to pull the trigger to buy more credits on Perplexity Computer, but I'm sure it's going to be more efficient with tasks like the one that Brian showed, because it's not going to have to be, you know, working so many tokens to try to understand various web pages and whether or not they have the right images with the right layout of the skis that I was looking for. So anyway, you choose wisely when you use Perplexity Computer, and I think you'll find it very, very useful.
Yeah. I think like all the companies, every single one is going to have some sort of version of that. So like I don't see, you know, just how things are moving, everyone's going to have that kind of ability to go out. It's just all about how much I don't think even a $200 a month subscription will be enough, because you need to really like to do some of the things that people are thinking about. Like I'm hearing people are like blowing $4,000, $5,000 a month on tokens, which is, that's like starting to get up to a person's salary. And so like,
and
yeah,
by the way, it's becoming importantly a component of salary negotiations for people
yes,
who are active AI agents, human agents inside corporations.
yeah,
So, and there's lots of press around the idea that, you're going to pay your, high-end AI senior software engineer $500,000 fully loaded, with all the benefits and everything else a year. And if you're not adding to that a couple $100,000 of token budget, that you're missing the opportunity, because it's the combination of the human and the tokens that together actually deliver the value.
Yeah, which is a very interesting topic, because I think like the businesses have to start to account for, like, it has to be a bottom line if you're going to be using AI. Like, yes, you can do subscriptions, but if you start wanting to do more and more of this kind of stuff, deploying lots of like team orchestration of agents, personal type agents, just burning the credits. And the Claude rate limit is going to be like across the board with everybody else.
Yeah, I actually had a major failure of ChatGPT last night. First of all, I was working. I had generated a comprehensive plan to do a new version 1.5 of this optimization model that I've been building. And then I got an interruption saying, reconnect your Notion database to it. And I thought, I should click later. I said, no, I do want to have ChatGPT have ongoing access to my Notion database. I'm thinking about using Notion as an outboard memory system, knowledge-based system for us. So I clicked it, and it went through the whole thing. Completely lost any history of the chat that I had ongoing for the prior hour and a half.
That's
gone. Not there anymore. And then it aired out completely and froze, and I couldn't even get it to receive a new prompt. And so I had to walk away. Now this morning it was working fine, and I was able to start over in effect and get back on track with that. But that's one of the first times that I've had a serious outage problem that actually erased work of value that I had built over the course of an hour and a half.
Interesting. You can't even branch it.
It's gone. I mean, it's like there's in your history of the chats, that's not even there.
That's crazy.
Anyway, so we're a little bit over time. Do you have anything you want to share with us?
No, I gotta go.
Okay.
Right now. That's why.
All right. Well, we're all going to go then. Yeah. So thanks everyone in the chat for staying with us, and we'll have more to talk about tomorrow. I'll hopefully have an opportunity sometime this week to share with you what I'm building and what I'm working on, just like Brian did. I love that. I often use and have used GenSpark to do those kinds of trip planning and or imagination, itineraries and so on. But I haven't used GenSpark in a while. I've been shifting most of my attentions to Claude Code and Claude Cowork. Okay, do join us again tomorrow. We're on Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. On the East Coast. And up in Canada, they're having a whole new time zone just for Karl. And, and so whatever that is.
Yeah.
And also join our community, the Daily AI Show community.com. There's a free Slack community there that you can join. And I'll be the one to bid you adieu. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.